The Young and the Restless spoilers Wednesday full episodes March 5, 2025 in the heart of a tumultuous city where alliances shifted like desert sands and every choice bore the weight of irreversible consequence. Two parallel dilemmas unraveled, threatening to plunge the lives of those caught in their intricate web into chaos. The tension was palpable, each decision, each betrayal, resonated like a death knell in the fragile balance between love and duty. For Nick, the situation was nothing short of a nightmare. In his heart, both Sharon and Phyllis occupied spaces too sacred to relinquish. He had nurtured a deep affection for each, finding in them qualities that spoke to his soul. Sharon's fierce independence and relentless determination had always inspired him, while Phyllis's vulnerability, hidden beneath layers of defiance and cunning, stirred his compassion. Yet, fate had woven a cruel challenge for him, a gauntlet that many fans whispered about in hushed tones. The ultimatum was as brutal as it was clear. Nick was forced to choose only one, condemning the other to death. This tragic scenario wasn't some abstract twist in a convoluted drama, it was a manifestation of the deepest, most primal weaknesses in human nature. For Nick, the impending choice was more than a matter of preference, it was a test of his very soul. If he were to lose one of them, the ensuing regret would echo through his life, a haunting refrain of guilt and sorrow that would never let him forgive himself. Each moment spent torn between two loves intensified the dread of what his decision would cost him emotionally, spiritually, and in the realm of his own identity. Who would he choose? Who would remain within his grasp, safe from the inevitable despair? And more hauntingly, could any life be worth the price of the other? In the background of Nick's internal torment, another storm was brewing, a tempest that threatened to dismantle yet another fragile alliance in this dangerous world. Victor, a man whose iron will was matched only by his unyielding ambition, had reached a boiling point with Claire. Their relationship, already fraught with tension and unresolved resentments, was on the verge of shattering completely. Victor's ultimatum was merciless and uncompromising. Claire had to uncover the hidden vulnerabilities of Jabot and defeat Jack, a rival whose very existence stood as an obstacle to Victor's grand designs. Failure, Victor warned, would come at a high price, one that would cost her the one thing she yearned for most, the possibility of a future with Kyle. For Claire, the ultimatum felt like a cruel paradox. She had long cherished the man she loved, and the thought of harboring hatred or even harboring the bitterness of vengeance in her heart was unbearable. The prospect of letting her affection curdle into something toxic, merely to secure a twisted version of love, was absurd. Yet, as Victor's words echoed in her mind, a dark possibility loomed over her soul. Could she possibly find happiness while nurturing such a malignant seed of resentment? The notion was almost unthinkable, a self-inflicted wound that might forever tarnish her spirit. In the quiet moments before dawn, as her thoughts swirled like a tempest within, Claire realized that even if she managed to succeed in her mission, the victory might taste as bitter as ashes, leaving her with a burden of guilt too heavy to bear. Meanwhile, the stakes in Genoa were rising with each passing hour. Chance, the enigmatic enforcer with a penchant for orchestrating events from the shadows, had engineered a game where the lines between right and wrong blurred into indistinction. His calculated maneuvers were designed to force the hand of destiny, creating a scenario where every participant would be compelled to confront their innermost fears. He had grown weary of watching the endless conflicts between Sharon and Phyllis. Struggles that, while seemingly trivial in the grand tapestry of life, eroded the very foundations of their existence. Chance believed that reconciliation was essential to restore order, yet he was painfully aware that neither Sharon nor Phyllis was inclined to seek common ground without being forced into it. To that end, he devised a series of trials, carefully calibrated challenges intended to strip away their defenses and lay bare the raw truth of their hearts. But as fate would have it, the game he orchestrated would soon extend its merciless reach to Nick, placing him at the center of a moral labyrinth where every decision might unravel the threads of his very being. With every calculated move, Chance sought to reshape the destiny of Genoa, even as he provided for Sharon's every need during her confinement. His actions, though seemingly benevolent, masked a deeper strategy, a vision of a future remade in his own image, where sacrifice and regret were the cost of survival. Back in the midst of these converging crises, Nick's predicament became ever more poignant. In a secret, dimly lit room filled with the hum of surveillance equipment and the echo of distant footsteps, Nick wrestled with the impossible choice laid before him. On one side, there was Sharon, steadfast, bold, and unwavering in her commitment to survive and fight for what was right. On the other, Phyllis is complex, unpredictable, and burdened by secrets that belied her tender core. The weight of love for both was a double-edged sword, slicing deep into his heart with every moment of indecision. He knew that whichever path he chose, the other would be condemned to death, a fate that would leave him with scars too deep to ever heal. The agony of such a decision was not lost on him. Every fiber of his being trembled at the thought of a life haunted by the memory of lost love and irrevocable sacrifice. And then there was Victor and Claire? A parallel saga of ambition, betrayal, and the crushing weight of ultimatums. Victor, with his relentless drive and ironclad authority, saw in Claire not only a subordinate but also the key to his grand scheme. His ultimatum was as much a threat as it was a test of loyalty, forcing Claire into a role that pitted her love for Kyle against the dark demands of revenge. The irony was inescapable. In trying to secure the future she so desperately desired, Claire was being pushed into a corner where every move was tainted by moral ambiguity. She stood at a precipice, where the choice was between a future marred by the stain of guilt or one where the absence of love left her soul barren. In her quiet moments of reflection, Claire wondered if she would ever be able to forgive herself for the unthinkable acts that might be required to please Victor, a man whose own desires seemed as ruthless as the world he ruled. As the fates of Nick, Sharon, Phyllis, Victor, and Claire drew inexorably closer, the city of Genoa itself seemed to hold its breath. In the streets, in the shadows of towering buildings, and in the hidden corners of hearts burdened by unspoken sorrow, the struggle for survival, love, and redemption played out like a timeless tragedy. Every step forward was haunted by the echoes of past betrayals, and every decision carried the promise of irrevocable change. For Nick, the looming choice was the epitome of a deadly weakness, a test that would determine not only the survival of the woman he chose to save but also the fate of his own soul. Would he be able to bear the crushing weight of regret, or would the blood on his hands forever tarnish the love he so desperately held dear? And for Claire, was the path of ruthless ambition worth the price of her innocence, or would her heart shatter beneath the strain of moral compromise? In this crucible of passion and betrayal, where every decision was a battle between duty and desire, the lives of those entangled in the web of Genoa's dark secrets hung precariously in the balance. The echoes of destiny resounded in every whispered conversation, every silent tear, and every defiant act of courage. And as the night gave way to a new dawn, the question remained, could any of them survive the choices they were forced to make, or would the ghosts of their past and the scars of their betrayals condemn them to a future defined by perpetual regret? Only time would tell which soul would be left standing when the final choice was made, and whether redemption could ever be found amidst the ruins of shattered dreams and irrevocable sacrifices. In the dim confines of a nondescript holding room, where every surface was a silent witness to despair and hope intertwined, Sharon and Phyllis had set a plan in motion, a plan so audacious that it bordered on the impossible. Under the cold gaze of their captor, who had grown complacent in his belief that his position was unassailable, the two women meticulously staged a bitter feud. Every insult, every feigned blow, and every heated exchange was a calculated part of their escape act. Their ultimate goal was clear: mislead their captor into thinking that their hatred for one another was genuine, while secretly preparing to seize the moment of silence that would allow them to break free. The unwritten rule of their captivity was as clear as it was cruel. Their captor had made it known that if his voice remained silent for a full 10 minutes, he would believe that his victims were too distracted by their own discord to notice any signs of rebellion. In that fleeting window of inattention, Sharon and Phyllis planned to forcefully break the door down, a desperate gambit for freedom that hinged on perfect timing and nerve. Despite the room's many hindrances, one in particular stood out. A large, opaque pane of tinted black glass that obscured any view of the outside world. This impenetrable barrier rendered them blind to the passage of time, to the cycle of day turning into night, and to any subtle cues that might hint at the right moment to strike. Uncertainty loomed large. Were they trapped in the dead of night, where the silence could be overwhelming, or was it day, when the outside world might be too alert to their sudden outburst? Regardless of the time, both women knew that hesitation was not an option. They had to act, and act decisively, or risk being trapped forever in a cycle of despair. Phyllis, ever the strategist with a mind sharp as a blade, was determined that their plan should follow her lead. She whispered urgently to Sharon, outlining every detail of her escape strategy. In her eyes, every second of the silent 10 minutes was a battleground where precision and unity were paramount. "We need to coordinate our moves perfectly," Phyllis insisted, her voice low but insistent as she traced invisible lines on the table. "When the captor falls silent, we hit together. There's no room for delay." Her tone was one of urgency and resolve, a testament to the countless times she'd fought for survival and emerged scarred yet unbowed. But Sharon, while equally desperate to escape, harbored her own ideas. She believed that a slightly different approach might yield better results, one that allowed for flexibility in the chaos of a sudden assault. "Phyllis, you know I respect your plan," Sharon replied, her eyes flickering with determination even as her lips curved into a deceptive sneer of anger. "But if we rely solely on your method, we might overlook the unexpected. We need to improvise, to trust our instincts when the moment comes." Her words were measured and defiant, a quiet challenge to Phyllis's authority that underscored the inherent tension between them. The divergence in their perspectives was not just a minor disagreement. It was a fatal flaw in their otherwise brilliant plan. The captor, though unaware of the real purpose behind their apparent conflict, was monitoring every word, every gesture, convinced that the simmering hatred between them made them easy to control. In his complacency, he had begun to relax his vigilance, assuming that their energies were too divided by personal animosity to mount any cohesive resistance. Little did he know that beneath the guise of hostility lay a unified drive for freedom, a silent pact forged in the darkest moments of captivity. Time ticked by in agonizingly slow increments, each second stretching into an eternity. The room was thick with tension, a stifling atmosphere where every whispered command and every muffled insult carried the weight of a desperate hope. The captor's voice, once a constant presence, had now fallen eerily silent, a silence that resonated in the hearts of Sharon and Phyllis as a clarion call to action. They exchanged a fleeting glance, a silent acknowledgement that this was the moment they had been waiting for. But before the countdown could truly begin, another complication emerged. With both women equally vital to the plan, there arose the need to designate a single leader, a captain to direct the impending assault on the door. Phyllis was adamant that her tactical acumen made her the ideal choice. "I've studied every detail of this room, every potential weak spot," she argued in a hushed tone, her eyes darting across the room as if memorizing every imperfection in the walls. "I'm the one who can guide us out safely." Sharon, however, was not so easily swayed. "I understand your strengths, Phyllis," she countered, her voice laced with equal parts respect and defiance, "but my instincts have saved me more times than I can count. I believe in a more adaptive approach, one that doesn't lock us into a rigid plan. We need flexibility if we're going to survive this." Her words revealed a mind as sharp as Phyllis's, yet tempered by a desire to maintain her independence, a quality that had always made her both a formidable opponent and a cherished ally. The debate over leadership was more than just a clash of opinions, it was the manifestation of their individual vulnerabilities. Both women had their scars visible and hidden, and the weight of their past experiences pressed down on them in this critical moment. Their conflict over who should lead was a microcosm of the larger struggle they faced, the battle between personal pride and the greater good. In that moment of high stakes, every decision bore the potential to either shatter their chance of escape or to propel them toward a freedom that they had only dared to dream of. As the 10-minute window loomed, the silence in the room grew heavier. Each second felt like a drop of water eroding the last remnants of their captivity, yet also intensifying the pressure of the unknown. The black-tinted glass offered no clues, only a void that mirrored the uncertainty of their fate. Were they on the precipice of liberation, or were they edging closer to a trap meticulously set by their captor? The duality of their predicament was a cruel reminder that in the realm of survival, nothing was ever as it seemed. In a final, decisive moment, as the captors' silence stretched on, the tension between Sharon and Phyllis reached its peak. They stood side by side, their eyes locked in a silent exchange that conveyed both rivalry and unspoken solidarity. The need for a leader was clear, a single figure who could unify their disparate strengths and guide them through the impending chaos. In that charged moment, a subtle shift occurred. The fierce determination that had defined their earlier feigned hostility gave way to a shared realization: their survival depended not on whose plan was better, but on their ability to merge their insights into a single, cohesive strategy. Without a word, the two women came to an unspoken agreement. They would choose a leader, not by a contest of wills or a declaration of superiority, but by recognizing that each possessed a unique talent essential to their freedom. It was as if the very essence of their struggle had distilled into this one choice: to cast aside their individual ambitions for the sake of the greater mission. In that split second of clarity, both Sharon and Phyllis understood that the designated leader, whether chosen by consensus or by the dictates of circumstance, would have to embody the collective will to survive. The silence finally broke as the count neared its end. With hearts pounding in unison and adrenaline surging through their veins, they readied themselves. Every muscle tensed, every sense heightened, as they prepared to shatter the confines of their prison. The captor's voice had been silent long enough. Now was the time to strike. In a coordinated burst of energy that defied the confines of the small room, they lunged toward the door. The moment of escape was upon them, a desperate, electrifying surge of will and determination. Whether their unity would hold in the face of the unknown remained to be seen, but one thing was indisputable: their shared resolve was the spark that could ignite a new beginning, a chance to reclaim their freedom from the clutches of despair. In that final, breathless instant, as the door shuddered under the force of their combined assault, Sharon and Phyllis realized that their differences, once a source of division, might very well be the key to their survival. The game was set, the stakes were higher than ever, and the only path forward was through the darkness, together. This narrative encapsulates the intricate layers of deception, strategy, and internal conflict as Sharon and Phyllis orchestrate their daring escape. Their feigned animosity, the critical need to designate a leader, and the overwhelming pressure of the captor's impending silence all converge in a moment of raw, unyielding determination. Their plan, born out of desperation and a shared will to survive, is a testament to the power of unity in the face of overwhelming adversity.